All right,
Trying
we
to like
are.
make it as dark as possible so
I like
that
it. I like it.
All right, so we are live at the Red Room / Phoenix RIA. Usually, Luke and I do a weekly call, and we merged it with the Phoenix RIA, which is also on the third Tuesday. They all both fall on Tuesday, so here we are with Luke, Dan Noma, and then Dina Jones from Fidelity, and we are here talking about fund buyers. And obviously, we all have seen that interest rates have gone up. I've heard the number as high as 9 Fed rate hikes this year. We've definitely seen a few. Just on CNBC, the 10-year hit 2.9. I think that's it was the highest number since late 2018. Um, there's obviously everybody's talking about a slowdown, and so we all deal with retail real estate and wholesale real estate, but obviously Dan deals with all the fund buyers throughout the state and then maybe throughout the Southwest. I don't even know. I think you buy in a couple different states actually. So we invited Dan on to give us some info in there.
Cool.
Love it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks all for being here today. Yeah, I'm like, where should we dive in first?
What do you want to tackle first? Covered a lot there, Chris. You got
We're
a lot
talking
of
about
ground
fun.
covered.
Fun.
Yeah.
The
So
state of the fund.
we can start with the first question. You deal with a lot, Dan, but has any of them pulled back yet? Has one said, no, I'm gonna stop?
Yeah. From like a fund level, we think about that a little bit differently. The way we like have started adjusting the market, I'll kind of share overarching is that we're not going to see any funds just back out of the market, right? So the difference this time around is the funds that exist today are different than the funds that existed in 2008 when we saw a correction the last time. These groups are really well capitalized, right? And they've already spent the money. So essentially, when you're borrowing money, other people's money, and you're deploying it in a market strategy, you got to go forward with the strategy, right? Unless the sky turns purple, you're going to see us continue buying assets. Now, the way that we think about a market correction is a little bit different. So to be honest, when the interest rate hike, we saw the first mortgage adjustment, we saw about 25 basis points. I went in the office that morning and I said, well, how many houses did we buy today? And before 10 o'clock that morning, we had contracted like 30 assets for Phoenix. And so for us, that was a big day, right? We average about 25 buys a day. That was a big morning. And so what that tells me is that, we are seeing a little bit of a softening, or we saw some scared sellers out there. And so the way we think about it is we just start adjusting our yield model, right? And so, our yield that we buy on is how we can throttle how much we're willing to pay for an asset. And so what we did is we just increased our yield a little bit. So I increased our yield by 25 basis points, and we can still buy assets at that number. Now, as we continue to buy at that number, I'll have to keep cheating up the yield, right? So you'll see us keep kind of cheating up that yield until we can't buy homes. And so we're testing it in Las Vegas right now. Like in Vegas has softened a little bit faster than Phoenix. And we've been able to increase our yield there about 50 basis points. So, with that being said, like that kind of an adjustment, to give you some perspective, is probably on a $350,000 asset could mean something like $15,000 to $20,000 in the price. So it's a significant adjustment,
So as you adjust your yield, and you said, has inventory grown in Vegas compared to here? I mean, we've gone from 4,200 to 5,400, which is, that's a large number, but we have such a small amount of inventory, it makes it look like a really large number. So
right, yeah. Yeah, about the same. So everything's about relative, right? So the Vegas market's about a third of the size of Phoenix, and so we're seeing that to quantify the two, we're seeing them about the same. As far as numbers of doors that are being active, I just think that in Phoenix we've got a lot more buyers, right? So there's a lot more demand here than there is in Las Vegas. And then the groups that we work with, we're lucky enough to not have a ton of competition in Las Vegas. So a lot of the funds that backed out of Las Vegas a couple of years ago, they have some construction constraints and some things like that we don't have here in Phoenix. That's allowed us to continue to buy there, at some sort of a clip. But we're seeing it. We're definitely seeing an adjustment here. And like I said, for us, it's how much powder can we keep dry and still deploy a little bit? We want to deploy a little bit of money. But our job is to make sure the fund or the model performs at its highest level. And so it's really my job to sit there and go, okay, like how long can I wait? Right. And so we'll test it for a few weeks. We'll see how it goes. As long as we're consistently buying and we're still getting assets, we'll probably just pause for a little bit. We will never really just shut the funnel off, but it's going to be a little bit of a test to see, how far this market will soften. And, as we soften, we just need to soften with it. That's how we think about it.
Right. Now, as far as like consumer rates, we've seen 3.12. I think that was the January number, and that's an average number. And the last time I've seen numbers, it was like 5.25 now. And I don't know this about funds. Have they already locked in their interest rate? And commercial rates differ, and I'm learning this as kind of go along and do the research. Like prime hasn't changed all that much over the last 90 to 120 days. So is their interest rates probably already locked in and not adjusting that much anyway? So
yeah, where we'll see the adjustment. And so the way the life cycle of these funds work is, there's this initial capitalization, and we use those dollars to actually deploy for acquisition and renovation. And so those monies have already been deployed. So those dollars, to your point, that those interest rates are locked in, that money's already been borrowed, that's sitting in our account. We're deploying it as it is. Where it's going to affect us is when we go to refinance the debt, right? So when we start refinancing the debt after stabilization, and we stabilize in like big portfolios. So 1,000 homes will stabilize the entire portfolio and refinance the entire debt portfolio of the whole deal. And when we do that, that's where we're going to feel it, right? And so that's why we need to be really careful about not outpacing the market and not just buying a bunch of assets right now. Now, the good news is like where we're seeing a potential price softening. We're actually seeing our rental rates increase, right? So we actually started bumping rental rates during the same time. And so we're kind of cheating a little bit right now because we're able to buy a little bit less and I'm renting it for a little bit more. So my yield's actually spitting out a little bit better. I don't know how long that lasts, right? And we're still, for every one vacant house that we've got in the market today, we're averaging about 40 rental applications, which is wild. Right.
That's a lot. And are they all like same price, like over?
Yeah.
I mean, are they all qualified renters? Like, what is that about?
They are. It's crazy. This is the first year that we've really started to like look at the data of our tenant and really try to understand that tenant profile a little bit better. Right. And the thing that we're learning is like the tenant that we've got today, like these people could buy homes. Most of these people, I would say like 30% of the people that come to us, they could buy a home. They're just choosing not to. Right. And why Jen, all the reasons are.
What do you think that reason is? What do you think the main reason for that is?
Yeah, I mean, we've thought about this 1,000 ways, Luke, and I honestly think that it really just boils down to people also believing that there is some sort of softening coming. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
They're kind of taking their chips off the table on maybe a sale, and they're going, okay, I'm going to hold these chips for a little while, and then I'm going to deploy it when the market's right. Right? I think we all suffered that blow in 2008, and we're a little gun shy to that. So I think you've got a demographic like that. And then we've got this new transient community of people that really don't want to buy. Right? And what's funny is like they're older. They're not like the millennial, of course, is still renting. And we're seeing a lot of those guys. But we're actually finding a lot of the people that are downsizing into rental and versus downsizing into these 55 plus and things like that, which is unique too. So we're having to qualify tenants a little bit differently because maybe they don't have income the same way that we thought they normally would,
Yeah. I think there's a lot of truth to that too. Cause I mean, I think of, I've got a lot of friends that, maybe if they end up buying in the last 3 or 4 years, they're kind of kicking themselves now. And, they're looking at it now and they're like, you know what, like I would love to buy and I can buy right now, but I'm with you. I think there's going to be a softening in the market. I think it's going to, kind of slow down a bit. And so I want to try to hold off. And, when they ask for our advice, and Chris, I know you get this too, but when they ask for your advice, all you can give them is the information you have in front of you. You know what I mean? You can't say, oh, well, this is what's going to happen, because no one knows. And so what we always do is we always just say, listen, I don't really know what to tell you. I wouldn't recommend one way or the other. It could be 10 years from now. It could be 6 months from now. So I think that's the thing that's where it gets to be kind of like a tough point when it comes to giving recommendations for other people.
On a side note, and I text Dan every now and then because Dan's a smart guy, so I always ask for his opinion. I want to say it came out on the Cronford report, something that said that rentals were not as strong as they were, and or they were softening a little bit. And I sent it over to Dan, and Dan's like, well, most of the tenants aren't actually out there. You can't really gauge it like you can MLS inventory and MLS sales prices, because a lot of tenants just go to these companies directly, or Dan directly, or something like that. So
yeah, right.
Yeah, we don't. We're not putting our inventory on the MLS, and so because of that, it's really hard for them to gauge the data. That's probably true for that mom and pop investor, but the institutionally, we're not putting them on the MLS, so we have a hard time kind of gauging that piece of data. We really just, like I said, we rank it on number of applications per vacant tour, and we're just constantly measuring that as our number. And as long as that stays true, we're bumping rents, right? We're getting bidding wars on rentals, which is never seen that before. But it's an interesting times for sure.
So Dan, do you guys like, before you say that the funds would tighten, would you maybe see like tightening in the buy box first? You know what I mean? Like, so for example, if it's like, okay, we whatever, the funds are buying up to 550, maybe they'll say, hey, we're only going to come up to 500 now, or we're no longer going to buy whatever homes that were built pre 1965 or whatever it ends up being.
Yeah, we'll start to make adjustments for vintage here pretty fast, right? So it's one of the things we've been kicking around.
Historic.
I mean, we earlier in the year we were obviously stretching to buy assets, and so we were willing to buy assets 1950 and newer, just because we had to deploy the money.
Right.
Now that I've got some options, right, I'm gonna focus on the stuff that's 1990 and newer, or tile roofs and stucco. I mean, the safer bets, we're gonna hedge on those as much as we can. Now, I mean, if the inventory is just not there and not available, we're still gonna have to stretch. But our goal would be to fill the portfolio with all 1990 and newer stucco tile roofs. Like that's the perfect avatar for us. But it just, unfortunately, it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
Now, do you? I mean, we know you do Vegas and Phoenix. Any outer county, Tucson? Are you guys down there at all, or?
No, we've got really good data down in Tucson. We're definitely seeing a lot of activity down there. They're having the same supply constraints that we are. So it's kind of across the board. There's not a market that I think is immune to this right now. I mean, everybody's feeling the pinch at the moment. So, it's tough times out there if you're a buyer looking for inventory.
For sure.
No, I watched a podcast yesterday, or maybe it was 2 days ago. It talked about a financial cliff and all kinds of doom and gloom and all kinds of good stuff. Now, are there funds out there that have money and like they're kind of salivating for that? They're waiting for that. They're like, yeah, we're ready for another one of these. Let's go again.
That's a yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if a friend asked me if I think there's going to be a market correction, my answer typically is that we're gonna see a market correction in the retail markets, right? But the foreclosure market, as we knew it, isn't going to exist like it once did, right? Like, we're not going to go down there and arm wrestle at the courthouse steps anymore. I just don't see that being the future where we go. Some of our clients actually own these notes, right? So we're actually looking at the inventory that we already own the notes on. And if we start to see that a consumer is not paying their mortgage, right, we're going to offer them a deed in lieu. We're going to start kind of having those conversations right now in advance, because the money's already there, right? And what the difference between, like I said, 08 and now is that these funds were significantly more established, right? They have significantly more capital. And we understand like what we were just late to the party last time, right? So if we were earlier to the party last time, we wouldn't have bought so many homes at the auction, Chris. Like, they wouldn't have been available for us. So now that they were established, these are real businesses. They're very well connected in the banking world, obviously. And so, when you start to see these default rates increase, that's when our signals go up and we go, hey, let's communicate to Wells Fargo and say, hey, guys, any defaults you've got, like, let's start offering these people some help in advance. And so I think we're going to see, if there is a significant correction, there's enough capital in the single family for rent space to basically buy every house in the country if we wanted to. The challenge is like getting them, right? And just getting in front of them.
For sure.
So if obviously if you get in front of them. You still have to, I mean, if they have, divorce, I always tell people there's still going to be stuff that comes to the courthouse, right? The divorce, the people that don't want to cooperate, anybody. I kind of put this out there because it probably happened. There might have been somebody that put a second for a small business loan on their home as a second mortgage. And then, obviously maybe COVID made their little small business go under because, a retail shop or something like that. But I mean, there's still going to be stuff that makes it because there's a title issue that makes it to the courthouse steps. So you can't, so there will still be some left over after Dan gets done with the other ones.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. What's interesting too is we're starting to see like new strategies come out of the institution too, right? So the single family for rent space is like just the thinking about just detached homes is pretty saturated. There's a lot of competition in that space right now. And so we're starting to see them get really creative with other strategies on how they could acquire. And so one of the groups that we just started working with is a Blackstone company. And what they're doing is they're doing a lease to own, right? And so we're actually working with these tenants that so I'm telling 39 people that apply to one of our rentals, no, they can't rent the house. Now I've got an option for those people where we're saying to them, hey, look, we know you didn't get this one. Go out and find another home in the market. We'll buy it on your behalf. And we're going to set up a ceiling. We're going to set a price out there, and it's going to be 3% more than what we paid for it. And you can buy this home from us anytime in the next 2 years for 3% more than we paid for it. So if we're right, then, you don't have to buy the house, right? So there's no downside risk for them. So we're finding a lot of people that are like on the fence, right? And so when they first came out with the strategy, I was probably a little skeptical. I was like, this is tough. Like, I'm going to have to work with a lot of tenants. But what we've learned is like there is a huge demographic of consumers out there that have this like pent up fear. And if we give them some sort of safety net, they'll jump to it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense everybody's wondering like what's going to happen in the next 2 years. Obviously with a lease to own, that takes away all that fear.
Yep. Yeah. And for us, I mean, we assume that, maybe 5% of them will actually execute and buy the house. So, essentially we're just building a rental portfolio, which is interesting.
And then do you do it typically the same way where, they put down their deposit or their down payment, what is typically that percent?
For this strategy in particular, it's the same. So like I know in like typical, lease to own strategies, it's like double or it can be a little bit higher.
Yep.
But in this, we're just collecting 1 month's rent up front. The rent price is slightly a premium, right? So our rental price is a little bit of a premium. But again, they're getting that safety net of that 3%, no greater than what we paid for it.
Yeah.
And then when they're buyers, like we're actually doing it with a lot of people that are buyers that have qualified to purchase, right? And they're going, man, I can't buy or I can't compete against the cash offer.
Yep.
When we go to make an offer to a seller, it's cash, right? So we're making a cash offer to the seller. Their offer becomes more competitive. So some people are telling us they're going to use this as the trampoline. They're just going to refinance or, take us out pretty fast. We haven't anybody do it yet, but they're telling us they're going to. So we'll see.
This reminds me of like back in the day, Dan, when you and I were doing stuff when I was on the new home side of things. And one of the things back in 2000, was it 2007, 2008 was the lease option, right? Nobody ever exercised the option, but they had that safety net in place in case they wanted to in 2 or 3 years.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I say that now in hindsight because I let someone else test it with their money, but I think it's I think it's something like as wholesalers or as retail agents should be thinking about is like how do we create some safety nets? If we can underwrite these deals, we could still cash flow them at the rents that we're getting and offer this safety net, and we could still make some money on these homes. Like maybe you can get a few more transactions this year just by doing it that way.
And then the person that's in the home ultimately feels empowered, like they have options and choices, right?
Yeah, we let them pick the paint color, customize the property, right? They're putting in their own tile and things like that. We give them palettes and say, okay, it's got to be within this box, but it's their house. They picked it, right? They drove around. We drove them around just like a buyer, right? We opened doors for them just like any other buyer and let them select their own property. So they do take some ownership in it for sure.
It's a great concept. I like that.
Yeah.
So one of the big questions I get, and I'm sure all you get, is Phoenix insulated compared to all the other cities in the country? Is we got low inventory. Our number of people moving here is, what is it, like 80 or 90,000? We have all the funds buying here. So are we insulated versus everybody else?
All right, who wants to take that one first, Mr. Noma?
Yeah, I would honestly tell you no. I don't think that we are insulated from any of that. I mean, I think that our blow will be slightly softened because we've got more demand, but like any other state in the country, I mean, a lot of our dollars are in stock market funds, things like that. I mean, if those markets have an adjustment, we're going to feel the pinch, right? People are going to have less money to deploy, and with inflation the way it is, gosh, it's costing me $200 to fill up a car now with gas. It's just getting expensive, right?
Yeah,
so I think it's tough to say that we would be insulated from like national economic issues. These are big deals,
I mean, yeah, you go by any restaurant, any clothing store, any place, period. You'll see on the front door it says, all hiring all positions right now, and it's like $18 an hour starting out. That's like everywhere you go right now. It's crazy.
Right. Yep,
yeah, I just heard this morning on the stock market channel they were talking about Verizon and how they're starting part-time employees at like $20 an hour, and then assistant managers with signing bonuses and all kinds of other like perks to just,
Yep.
Oh,
I don't know about you guys. Have you seen all the banks that have been closing down? I mean, at least over here in Gilbert, we had the we got for Bank of America and Chase. We had about 4 or 5 banks that were just right there that just closed down. We asked every one of them. They all said it's because they don't have any employees.
They're keeping the storefront. They just don't have enough employees to work.
Mm-hmm. I mean, all the drive-thrus are shut down. Like, I feel like they're shut down like 70% of the time now. It's crazy.
Wow.
I actually heard an economist say though that they called they called COVID like the giant retirement, and they they're gonna call 2023, and I literally just watched this podcast a couple days ago, and they called 2023 the giant unretirement. People are gonna just have to go back to work. So we'll see if that's true or not. This economist I listened to him for 2 hours, and he was pretty smart. I mean, he was making fun of some lady that was banking on out of country debt, and she was down 16% this year, and he was kind of making fun of her. But
that's funny. Dan, do you guys buy from iBuyers?
We do, yeah. We buy a lot of our inventory from iBuyers. So like Opendoor, for example, is about 30% of their inventory that they purchase gets sold directly to institution before it ever goes to the retail market.
I can see that for sure.
So it's a significant piece of their business, right? That kind of gets washed under the rug. So I laugh in some of these forums. I shouldn't say I laugh. I smile in some of these forums when I see that agents are saying, well, the iBuyers are losing money. They bought this house, and there's an example of one that they lost money on. And then, in the flip side, I'm looking at 30% of the inventory that they just clipped and made, millions on. It's an interesting game that they play, but they're having some record months. I can tell you that. So, we also list homes for Opendoor in the market, in both markets, and we're scaling to be ready for the supply that's coming, right? So they've actually purchased a significant number of homes that are getting ready to close in the next 45 days that we're having to ramp up for, so that we can list on the retail market here shortly. So it's coming. I mean, the supply's out there, no doubt.
So that being said, you think there is more supply coming to the Phoenix market? Mm-hmm. So our 5,400 could be 7,000 or 8,000?
Yeah, pretty fast. I would say by the end of the quarter, right? So it's going to move fast.
I have a bet with somebody that's my own personal bet with somebody that on July 1 will be over 10,000 actives.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be kind of like last time, right? Where you've got a lot of people that, want to catch the tail end of the tip, right? They want to make sure that they're going to get the end of that. So a lot of these people that have been sitting on ice, as soon as they see a little correction, they're going to throw their home on the market. And then, like I said, we're already seeing it a little bit. We're seeing more submissions to kind of all of our off-market channels. All of our iBuyer channels have increased numbers and volume. So, you know, we think it's coming, right? And we think it's going to continue to be, you know, supply heavy here shortly. We just got to make sure that we continue renting them for us. As long as we can rent the asset, we'll keep buying. You know, if that rental side starts to dry up, that's where we're going to have a pinch point.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
Well, thank you for taking your time, sitting in your car, heading out to Mesa.
Yeah.
If any of you guys are Suns fans, we all are Suns fans. So
There's a reason we pivoted and we're on this afternoon.
I'm a T-Wolves fan here, and we're finally in the
Oh.
playoffs. So give me a
Oh
break.
no.
well,
Oh no.
we're going to transition you to a Suns fan soon, Luke.
Yeah. You're a Suns fan today, Luke. You got to
Yeah,
go.
all right. Well, the T-Wolves play tonight too, though, guys. All right.
All right. Good luck
They
to
can
you.
both be winners because they're not playing each other.
True. This
Yeah.
is true.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
So we're
if
totally
meet,
okay with
if
that.
they meet in the Western Conference Finals, we'll have issues.
Well, for
Yeah.
you guys who are Suns fans, you know, look for Chris. He'll be at the game tonight. That's why we decided to pivot and put the education online this time for the Phoenix RIA.
If you guys don't know Chris, he's tough to miss. Look for 6'6", handsome fella.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Dan. Thanks for jumping on with us.
Okay, cool. See you guys
Appreciate
later.
it, man.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Have a great day.
Yeah.
See ya.
That was
Chris-
episode 10.
Oh, we're still